Uh, MRI, we've been combing through this thing every
Yeah.
which way but loose, right? You and I had real time talks. We've had time to go back through it. I think there's a lot out there. One of the things I thought was crazy for the way that Nebraska plays offense, and you've played this game at a super high level. How shocked or not shocked, I don't want to put words in your mouth, were the fact that if Nebraska snapped the ball 74 times, that Michigan had 40 solo tackles.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's a lot of I mean, you have to look at the film to confirm it, but it seems like a lot of either catch tackles or just guys just getting in the backfield. And I think that also kind of demonstrates, I mean, I saw a lot of the talk, just about just the strength aspect of that front seven of Michigan's in comparison to, what we had up front. And even with Emmett's a great back, but he's not the biggest back, right? And I saw at least a couple runs where it could have been a more, we could have gained a little more positive yardage. If we had maybe a back with a little bit bigger stature, right? They could run through a little bit of those tackles. He kind of oftentimes gets swung around, but that's what the give and take with having an elusive, kind of smaller east-west, zone type of running back, right? And he's great at what he does. But that's kind of the biggest thing I saw is right their ability just to finish tackles, right? And again, have to look at the film for context. But you talk about it probably DB with your team, positive tackles and negative tackles, right? When I put my shoulder pads on them, there are no more yards gained, right? That's a positive tackle, right? Or actually, a positive tackle will be taking them back, right? Yardage, right? Neutral tackle will be him stopping where you got him, and then a negative tackle would be him gaining those yardage after you make contact. So again, have to look at the film to confirm it, but just from the eye, looking at that Michigan defense, there was a lot of positive tackles and guys driving their feet and getting guys to the ground immediately on contact. So something I bet. I mean, on the bye week, you're definitely going to be trying to improve as for Nebraska, and I bet offensively for Nebraska, they're talking about that too, running through those tackles, creating those more positive gainage out of some plays where you got to be YOB, you got to be your own back. You know what I mean? You got to make a guy miss, or you got to run through him. We got to get those extra yards to get us in better positions on certain downs and situations.
MRI, let me ask you this about the tackling aspect of it for Nebraska, right? Because that's something that got brought up a lot. Hey, you got to tackle better, got to tackle better. How much of that, how much of tackling well is fitting on time?
Oh yeah, that's a big part of it. Yeah, I think that's a good question.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
it see, we'll talk about it, DB. We'll talk about it. But I think that's a really good question, a really good point, right? I mean, the obvious one, right? And I see all you break it down, DB. I've broken it down. Everyone's broken it down with every camera angle in the stadium on Saturday. The Buford one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I, I don't. Again, we don't know what the call was. What was it? Cover two? Was it man? Was it quarters? Right? There was a lot of moving parts in that play there to kind of single out what exactly it was. But however, with the space given up, right, in that type of situation, you talk about fitting on time is being able to see the key that you only have a tight end or a single receiver on that side. He's blocking the heck out of your corner, and understanding that we talked DB. I love football, right? Because it comes back to week one. We talked about after Cincinnati was what? How does Nebraska handle nub side runs? And that's what they got hit with, right? I mean, all their big runs was pretty much 2 or 3 by one side. I know the other one, Marshall, was 2 by 2, but still going into the boundary, you had the single slot receiver on gun through there. Again, I think like Ravi, that's a great question, right? Being able to fit on time, take away space, and give yourself the confidence in your position to perform your job. I think that's important, and it is a big part of timing.
So let me ask you something. I wouldn't say we went round and round, but Jay broke it down on Big Red Wrap Up inside the huddle, and he's a D lineman, so he's looking at it like, man, you put my DT in a bind, kind of
Right.
hung my insides out to dry. You have the other vantage point as a guy that played inside. Did you have any? Would you have had any problems with the initial stunt if you knew whether you were? And we'll get to whether that was going to be box or spill. But did you
Right.
have any problems with the initial stunt to begin with?
I did not. I did not. And when I broke it down, the only problem I had with it looks like for me again, not in the headphones, right, in the headset. But it looks like to me those running a double exit, right? So they're bringing both in outside guys into the interior gap inside of them, and the two inside guys wrapping up. They did it on both sides. The only problem I had was I thought Williams could have cut across that tackle's face to close that space on the backside. Other than that, I think it accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. They didn't want the ball to get to their corner,
Yep.
and it got
So
pushed
you're
inside.
assuming they're boxing that.
Yes, I'm assuming they're boxing that. You would have to, because who's going to spill it if you're in,
Yeah,
if
you
you're
have no
in.
one to spell it to.
Yeah, if your end is going in, right? Sorry for this, Bill.
No, you're
Right,
okay.
but if the end is going in, then I mean you don't have anyone to box it until late, because those nose and tackles got to get out later, right? And so again, I don't know the coverage. If we knew the coverage, that kind of give you a little bit better indication of what their actual idea was for that play. But I think
Keith looks like he's fitting that like a box safety.
yes, yep, yeah, he does. Yeah, it's kind of like a 2-on-1 on the number one receiver on the backside corner, and that backside safety kind of playing off of one. And I think, and again, you broke it down too with Shavers. Only thing, again, not knowing the call, I would have liked for them to do in that situation was use his hands and almost two gap it to close that space down,
On the
right?
on the
Yeah,
left.
you know what I mean, and give more of a shot, because once he takes that rip angle inside, now his hips capture and the space gets even bigger for Buford, right? And I know it felt like Buford kind of was out of the game after that play, and I don't know what the history was or what led up to him kind of coming out and more gun three and more rotational with other guys in the back end, but
They did play some
it's
more bare fronts though, from a secondary standpoint.
yeah, yeah, for sure. He talked about playing three corners out there and five D linemen as well, stuff like that. But again, right, that's a great question, Ravi. Like I think that's important. Like just how you fit it is huge. Um, and the time in there, and as you saw, the timing was off on. I mean, on all three levels. Again, I know Buford got singled out on that single play, but again, I think on all three levels there was some combination of.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
just something that was off. It wasn't drawn up how it didn't get executed. Sorry, how it was drawn up.
What do you have problems with the scheme?
No, I don't. You know what? DB, I've watched. I've gone back and watched, and it's a different athletes, different stuff. But I've watched every Tony White Florida State game from this year, just to see what's the difference. Is there any difference?
Mhm.
And there ain't much
It's
schematically.
very similar.
It's the same. I would say Tony. Obviously, he played in the 3-3-5, a true 3-3-5 stack with that rotational pieces of all three linebackers. We were playing up in the box or on the line of scrimmage in the box. So there's a little bit more of that. And plus, I mean, when you got, I mean, look, no offense to the guys in Nebraska, but there's about two or three NFL D linemen on there. We can rush three and drop eight a lot if we want to, especially against the talent they're playing right now. But scheme wise, it's the same. And I understand competition, all that stuff, but I see what they're trying to do, what they want to do. Again, I think are you asking that in code as far as for the D line, or are you just saying it in general? Because when I look at, again, I think everyone said it. I don't think the D line performed as bad as, obviously, rushing stats goes directly to the D line, just like a win goes to a quarterback, right? It kind of, there's no context there when we do stuff like that, right? And again, I personally thought, especially as a former second level player, that the second level, again, going back to what we talked about Cincinnati DB, that in order to have guys be able to play behind moving and explosive fronts, they have to understand that things are going to change quickly, and how I fit and where I fit, going back to Ravi's point about timing, is crucial and important. And I think there's going to be some mixing up of the rotation at linebacker coming out of the bye week. I think, I personally, I love to see 40 play a little bit more. Um, in certain situations, I think Shavers fit well in those downhill attacking type of offenses, right? Like Michigan. So we'll kind of see a little bit of that versus Michigan State. But I still think Washington Trent's still a good player. I still think Javen Wright. I think he struggled a little bit, but I think he's still a good player. I just think they got to get more reps. And everyone said, "Oh, we've been doing this since fall camp or since the spring." It's live now. Things are flying, right? And I think they got to get more reps of it. And
And their
again,
opponents have tape too, right? So now they
right,
got to adjust on tempo
e-
and it's tempo and trust for me, right?
exactly,
If you're talking about a D line getting across, down, fitting tighter from C to B gap, you're talking
right,
about taking on a puller more half man. You're talking about
Right.
giving a running back two-way go,
Hmm.
and then how a safety can fit. Like all those build on each other, but it boils down to, I mean, if you finish the stunt up front,
It's
we may
yeah.
be having a different conversation.
It's a 9 yard gain, second down and one. You know, what I mean, and I know people hate when we do this right, and we go back and say, well, like Coach said, hey, we don't say it boiled down to 6 to 8 plays or whatever, right? It was 45 of them, and we go back and say, hey, if this happened, but it didn't. But I mean that's how I mean DB, right? We're football coaches. That's how we look at it, right? I'm not going to accept the losses as, oh, we lost and we're terrible. That's not how I'm going to analyze that.
Not how
I'm
you
gonna
want your staff to do it either.
no,
Certainly
and
not
and I
players.
think and I hope even with all the entertainment you guys bring, even us talking about ball, that people actually not just listen just to hear what they want to hear, but get a better thought process in analyzing what happened Saturday instead of the overreaction, the fan reaction that you typically get. Let's analyze the game. And that's the big reason why I'm doing three. It's not to do anything, but let's get smarter about talking about football and not just saying. That's a big reason why people ask me like, why don't I put the guys' names in there? Because I don't want to make it personal. I want to make it football.
Mhm.
Hey, it's not about the person in the helmet. It's the scheme. Let's talk about the game of football and not make it so personal and stay behind these guys because I mean this season still could be very special and they got a lot ahead of 'em. I think Michigan State's a good opponent, but they're not something that I don't think they're any better or worse than Cincinnati, in my opinion, as far as looking at the film of them. Like I think where we're headed and what we got going and the foundation they've laid defensively and offensively is a winnable formula. We just got to execute better, right? And other things offensive line we got to figure out. But again, I think it's more execution, like you said, DB, and less of the world's falling. It's the same Nebraska team. Let's get out of that mentality.
So, Michael, there's something you kind of touched on there with the kind of the tempo and the trust of the run fits, right?
Hmm.
So as I'm watching that, and I go, okay, if I'm a coach, how do I weigh? Okay, this is what we've practiced. I've seen these guys execute it in practice versus, hey, in game, I don't know if I can convince them to do what I need them to do,
Hmm.
and so I'm going to maybe force their hand a little bit with, say, some selected run blitzes or things like that.
Right.
How do you kind of weigh making them more aggressive by
Mm.
forcing them into something versus trusting, hey, I've seen them do this before, let's keep at it?
I think in the heat of the moment, unless you just have supreme confidence. I mean, every coach gonna say I got confidence in my game plan and my guys, but if I'm seeing they're struggling, then it's got to be something that we have discussed as far as what's our next play. And this can't be halftime. Like I think I've seen the quote thrown around. Halftime, the most overrated, adjustment period. Kind of in football, right? Most teams come in with an A and B plan, and maybe even a C plan if things go that bad, right? So I think for this group, I think what they're doing works for this group. I think they have to execute it better, and I think that's something that in general, a defense coordinator, offense coordinator, or even a head coach has to just understand and have a feeling for his guys and what they can do. Obviously, what they've shown, but if we're on Saturday and the results aren't showing, right, we got to kind of hit press the button, right, and go to that next thing if that's what we have planned. So I think a lot of it for them is this week I not even get back to the basics. I hate the feeling that some people feel it's like we got to scrap everything and kind of like figure out a new foundation, especially for the defense or the run stop and stuff. Again, I think it's a lot of execution. I think there's some guys that can get a little bit more in the rotation on the second level. I think it help a little bit more. But again, if you know your guys are have the ability to be able to play, hey, we'll play base defense and we'll be able to win 1-on-1, then let's do it. But this isn't the team that's going to be able to do that for 60 snaps, right? We just have to be realistic, right? We interior, right, D line wise, right, you have smaller guys, right? So the movement works for them. I think again, Butler has to get comfortable, with the guys has in there, and then also the defense has to trust that what he's putting them in can be executed and has to be executed at the level he's expecting it to be.
So when we're talking about kind of what you want to do in the bye week, and we're gonna get off the cookie thing here for a second and get into pies. If I had to give some pieces, you obviously during the bye week you've got to weigh, the tactical versus the technical, right? With the
Mhm.
philosophy versus the execution. How much do you like? How are you divvying up the pie at that, and then getting into the other piece of the pie, which is which guys can do what based on what the first two things are telling me?
Film. I mean, you with 4 weeks, you like you said, you have tape of yourself. You have seen yourself obviously against your own unit, but you also see yourself against four other teams, varying degrees of difficulty. And so you have a good idea. I think this bye week is in a good spot for them to be able to kind of not I don't want to say reset, but refocus or reshift. Right, again, speaking on that tactical versus technical. Um, so I think that for Nebraska, their biggest thing in the bye week is going to be, again, kind of balancing that. Like, what philosophically can we continue over for the rest of the season is going to help us, right, win football games and close out football games, and when we're in those tight games, be able to finish those games. Um, but again, looking at what they did, as far as the tactical part schematically, I think that it's what fits them. Execution has to be better, right?
Mm.
Mm.
Michael, so let me switch. You mentioned something there on the offensive side of the ball a couple minutes ago about Nebraska's offensive line. So I'm going to phrase this to you as if you're facing Nebraska's offensive line as a defensive coach. I
Mhm.
thought, and tell me if I'm wrong, I thought guard, center, guard, they were actually pretty good on the offensive line. Obviously, the
Agree.
speed rush on the tackles was giving them a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
If you're a defensive coordinator and you see that's how your defensive line is getting home, what are you hoping they don't run?
Mm.
Am I speaking for the defense perspective
Yeah, if
or
you're the
offense?
defensive coordinator and you're saying like, "Hey, we're getting home, speed rushes on the
Mhm.
outside, middle, we're not making a lot of hay." What are you hoping they don't throw at you offensively that can beat what you're currently doing?
I mean, you think screens, draws, those type of plays, but I mean, outside of that, I mean, we're rushing four and dropping seven. You know what I mean? Split field coverage. We're going to play 4 over 3 and 3 over 2. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Mhm.
goes back. It's that NFL philosophy, and when you can do that at the college level, especially, I mean, Rhule is a great quarterback, but most quarterbacks aren't able to process the game maybe as well as he is.
I
That's
would
where you
think
can get
maybe two.
guys in troubles.
What about like two back lead, like some
You,
sort of
I mean, you,
sprint action lead?
I, I think on paper, it works. It sounds good, right? But then when you
It has.
get
Is that what they do?
yeah, and I think Rule talked about in his press conference, right? Is that what we do, right? Is that who we are, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they want to make it that game. I think they've gotten to the mindset, and it could shift. I think Rule talked about it as well as just, hey, I understand. I think our pass run ratio is pretty shifted towards passing right now. And again, I think that's when he brought up, hey, is that who we want to be, right? And we know that's not who we can be. Want to be? That's who we should be or need to be in order to be a successful team and have the type of season I think they can finish with. Um, but I mean, it could be a part of the package. Maybe it's not out of two back. Maybe it's with out of 11 personnel, and you're bringing that tight end, inserting them in on ISOs and things like that,
Yep.
and getting him involved there. But again, I think you put yourself in a tough spot, right? And kind of you need that heroic, and that's what honestly watching offensively, the game felt like being a Chiefs fan. It felt like the Chiefs recently, kind of with their offensive line struggles, right? To where you're expecting Pat, right? And I don't want to. I'm not comparing Pat and Dylan, right? But I saw how that went yesterday.
Who would do that?
Uh,
Man.
Who would do that?
DB clapping back.
Listen,
I
I
love it,
don't even.
baby.
You know me, man. I didn't want to have to do that. I don't like
It's all
being.
right. It's
I
all right.
don't.
Sometimes you got to show it. Sometimes you got to show them. But again, it kind of felt like you need that heroic effort from Dylan for them to be successful. He did it, and I think that's where the optimism, like, okay, if we can just protect this guy, I think you're under two beliefs. It's either if we can just protect him, or we need to run the ball better, and that protects him.
Mm.
And that's why I found so blasphemous about, I think, one of the quotes that guy had yesterday, just about how Michigan's offense sets up Underwood to process like, oh my, come on, like, okay, that was yesterday, new day. But yeah, I think I think they got to run the ball better. I mean, they got to find runs that they can execute on a consistent level, and whatever it is, DB. If it's got to be three backs in the backfield, we got to go pistol full house like we did with Taylor and do all this other stuff. We got to find something we can consistently hang our hat on. What I thought was interesting, what we didn't really
I
see,
think
and
there could
maybe
be a big difference just between pistol versus offset. I
yeah. I
I
mean,
coach it
I think you
differently
bring
on
that up.
defense
You bring it up every week. I mean, I think that's
because I
something
think
they.
it matters.
Yeah, it matters. No, it does. It definitely does. It's something they could definitely utilize. But I thought, I don't know, the script runs they had, like the first two series, I like the
They kind of
direction
hit.
they're going, but it just felt like, again, maybe I need to watch the film just for better context, but it just felt like we kind of got away from it, and I think we got, and Dana's very well experienced. I'm not saying he got overwhelmed, but just with the type of pressure you were seeing on those first two series, it looked like, oh, this is going to be a long game. You know what I mean? And I think maybe we got away from it. Maybe that was just scripted to see kind of what we can set up later on. I don't know, but I thought the misdirection kind of duo handoffs going into the C and D gap, giving Emmett a kind of a two gap read or reading off the backers.
That's
That's his best run.
that's that off tackle stuff I'm talking.
Yeah, yeah.
There's multiple
That's
ways
his
you can
best run.
do.
That's like the
Yeah,
orbit stuff with Mosey too.
Well, you can occupy and hold second level or like your adjusters. You can
yeah.
hold guys with
So
action.
speaking of holding those guys in place, goes right into the question I wanted to ask Michael here is when you're looking at what Nebraska's offensive line is, what Michigan was doing to them defensively, how much does that RPO hold those guys in place long enough? Does it hold them in place long enough to give Dylan that extra time?
That RPO game got to be pretty slick though.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like
Yeah,
it's working pretty well.
towards the end they start to get a feel for it. I mean, it's kind of like the new, like, hey, throw the running back the ball, and that's kind of like a run kind of thing. But
I asked if
there's something about actually give it with the intent to give the ball and run through somebody's face mask. Again, and that's where again the RPO kind of gets. It's tricky because if you get a quarterback like Dylan, who's like, right, hey, coach, I feel you on the option to run the ball, but I trust my arm a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more than what the run scheme may be, or just being blunt, who's running it or who's blocking or who's protecting it. But I think it's a good easy access throw for us. For Dylan, he understands the process as well. I mean, if you ain't running the ball though, it's easy to say, hey, on the second level guys, hey, let's bat our feet a little bit in the ground before we start getting the run fit. Because again, if we go back to it, if I can handle 5 with 4, then I don't need you playing fast in that B gap. Hey, we'll almost two gap that guy. He'll
I
play
said it
primary
with
secondary.
no threat of the. You've heard me say
Mm-hmm.
this forever. With no threat of inside run game,
Mhm.
you can scheme it different.
Yep.
Conversely, Ravi asked me yesterday. He said, "Hey, what's the difference though between running toss or lead or anything off tackle versus RPO?" And I said, "Nothing outside of physical mindset."
Yeah.
Right? Which is what you just said. It's
Yeah.
like there's something different emotionally about giving it to a guy and saying get there versus
Mhm.
I asked if
we're
it,
gonna get no, and
yeah,
I'm not
no, I
down.
know.
I'm just telling you,
Right.
like,
I asked if there was a practical difference or if it was mostly just mindset,
yeah, and it's
which is fine.
I think there's both.
it's a
I think
mind.
there's both.
Well, if I
I
want
mean,
to,
it becomes a mindset thing when you've been hit in the mouth a couple times, and
Yeah.
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't want to come
it
up. You
has
know what
to
I mean?
take its course. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I told
Yes.
him.
Exactly. It has to flow naturally through running the ball, establish the run. Now we get the alley guys getting a little hesitant. And then that's when you can get to your big play action stuff where now, okay, I've been hesitant. Coach is on my butt about getting in the run fit, right? I'm screaming up in the run fit. Now we got a 20-yard crosser going back behind, the linebackers or over the top of the safeties, things like that.
This might be a dumb question, but I don't know, so I want to ask it anyway. So if you're running RPO versus like a traditional play action, does
Hmm.
that look the same real time to a defense?
Yes, for us it does.
Yeah, yeah. For if you're reading your keys, I mean,
Yeah, if you're reading hi hat, low,
yep,
back.
yep.
Oh,
Because
If they're not climbing, you know what I mean.
yeah,
And that's the thing. People, there's a lot of people that play football, but when you play it and seeing a lot of different looks and things like that, people tend to think that guys' eyes stay in one spot, right? Because you all you see is a helmet, right? You don't see their eyes moving, right? And for a lot of guys, if you played at a decent level and had enough reps, you're almost seeing through something. Like if I'm lined up in a 30, right, outside shade of the guard as a linebacker, right, I'm seeing through the guard to the back.
Mhm.
So I'm almost confirming what my first look is, which is my guard through the back. So if we're seeing downhill action with the back and also the guard coming at me, I'm gonna play it like run, right? I'm gonna play it like run if I'm in the fit, right? Now, if I'm getting hi hat guys going back, but the running back's coming to me, right? Just it's something to say. It's just it's hard to kind of explain, but it's just instinctually you've seen enough reps of it. You've got a good feel on film of how they're moving on certain things. You can even get his detail, seeing the weight of the hand in the ground, things like that. When you're in there. But I think again the mentality part of it, or the brain lock that comes with running RPOs on for defensive guys, comes with they've been hitting us in the run, and I've got to get downhill, right? So I think that it just helps set everything up. Like we talked about, the run game is going to help protect them just as much as our tackles being able to work against those power rushers.
It sounds strange, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Seems like the better coached you are, the more susceptible you are to it because
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Because you're
Hmm.
reading these,
Yeah,
you're trying to make the right call.
and it's why I lose my mind. We played a team last week that is so good at the RPO game, but what makes it tough is, yeah, it looks the same, but when you get the grace to, for 3 or 4 yards down the field, then it's really, really hard because
Right.
that's why I would the one of the rule changes I want more than illegal contact or whatever being 5 yards and automatic
Hmm.
first down is we got to get on these linemen downfield
Yeah.
because it's changed the game dramatically in terms of how you can play RPO if you do read keys like that,
Hmm.
because it all looks like the better coach, even the offensive line, it
Yeah.
all looks the same.
Hmm.
And when you're
Yeah.
letting me get movement down the field, I'm gonna get a bad read,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think there needs to be like an offsides kind of thing, that like how they do in soccer, where it's maybe up top they're looking at it, because I mean it does get difficult. I don't know if it gets towards like tush pushes type of play
Which
where
doesn't bother me, but I mean when there's so much RPO and these guys get 4 or 5 yards.
But I think it's just that kind of that gray area of the rules a little bit, right? Where it's if you're if you're 1 yard down the field, DB, I'm looking at the ref like, hey, he's downfield, right? He's run blocking. Like pass set. Even if he jump sets at the guy, he's still 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like we should be able to see these things, but again, we looking at it from a former player and coach's view, so we're seeing it in a whole different
It's
whole different way.
I know it's hard.
So the
Yeah,
reason
I know it's hard, but see it.
the reason I asked how it looked is because theoretically, right? If you actually give it to the running back enough in the RPO to keep them honest on the run game, and that also looks the same as traditional play action, then that's what would open up the opportunities to push the ball down the field, right?
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
on RPO, right, they're sitting on short routes
I'm
because that's
telling you,
about all you can get
we
out.
Hmm.
saw it last week.
Yeah.
They're a
Yep.
heck.
I mean, I think that's what makes Michigan's offense, tough. They make a lot of same as stuff. You know what I mean? Everything looks the same. They'll dress it up the same. You know, it's kind of like. So I'm a quick story on that one, right? So it's kind of like I had a family, Southern family. We had a barbecue one day, and they got all the food out. They got chicken wings, ribs, and things like that. And then they tell us there's like some pulled pork or like some pulled brisket, something like that. They got in the tray. I mean, everybody's eating it. They're tearing it up. And then come to find out, tell us it's a whole pot of barbecue raccoon. So that's kind of what a good offense does, right? We're gonna dress it up. We're gonna put the barbecue sauce on it. We're gonna grill it just like nice little quarter chicken, right? But but then you get a raccoon, and it was
Yeah.
very good. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was very good.
No, I'm out. I'm mad. I'm not coming back.
It was it was it was it was it
Uh,
was not bad, right? So that's kind of the dress up like you see of these offenses. Like man, they the good ones do that. The good ones do that, and I think that's where Nebraska a little bit, get a little more in sync with setting some stuff up, and like you said, make it look the same with RPOs. But again, I think that, again, going back, the physicality of the run game opens up everything, right? That opens up everything.
it's hard too when you're so dynamic outside the numbers with wide receivers and your best player is your quarterback, right? So there's
Yeah,
who we
yeah,
want to be versus who we need to be.
Right, and that's the balance they gotta get set coming out of this bye week.
That's our guy, Michael Rose-Ivey. Great stuff as always. Appreciate the time, and despite the oatmeal raisin take, I think we'll have you back next week.
Yeah, we'll break down Sparty.
I will make sure to get a nice little tray of oatmeal cookies
Yeah, he's such a
delivered
hater.
to the
You want me
studio.
to get better, huh? Well, I want to blame, complain, and deflect. Why do I need to get better?
Old man yells at the sky.
BCD. BCD.
Oh, we appreciate it.
But have a good day, fellas.
Thanks, Amari.